Señores, ¿cómo están? Bueno, pues la policía acaba una asamblea demócrata tras una confrontación furiosa. Así es, durante una reunión del congresista demócrata Shane Casten en Downer Grove, en Illinois, el ambiente se salió de control cuando estalló una discusión acalorada entre todos los asistentes. Esta situación pues escaló rápidamente, obligando a la policía a intervenir y escoltar a varios participantes fuera del edificio. La tensión fue tal que la asamblea tuvo que ser suspendida abruptamente, dejando a toda la audiencia en estado total de shock. Este incidente refleja totalmente la creciente polarización que viven los Estados Unidos, ya lo hemos comentado muchas veces, y bueno, de donde incluso los espacios también del diálogo se convierten en escenarios de confrontación total. Yo aquí les pregunto, y como siempre yo les pregunto, ¿hasta cuándo seguirán estas escenas de caos y división provocadas por el gobierno de los Estados Unidos que han sido demandadas por el presidente Donald Trump? Como siempre les agradezco su presencia aquí. Vamos a ver este video y lo vamos a comentar. Adelante.
And tempers flaring coast to coast, voters confronting their lawmakers.
You are the most soulless piece of crap I've ever seen.
That's your opinion.
Soulless. Soulless.
Sir, get off the... Sir!
A tense face-off at a town hall in Illinois. Democratic Congressman Sean Casten was confronted by pro-Palestinian protesters angry over Israel's attacks on Gaza. Police ultimately asked the congressman to end the event early.
You have an issue. If you have a question, we can address that in the question period.
By Israel. You are bought and paid for by AIPAC.
You believe that. You believe that. You believe
What
that.
have you done
It
to
doesn't
this
make it
country?
true.
What have you done?
Sir, we will have a question period. If you cannot behave respectfully,
This is your nation's flag.
if you cannot behave respectfully, then leave.
This is your flag.
With us now is Democratic Congressman Sean Casten from Illinois. Congressman, good morning to you. What happened?
Morning. Well, the whole thing just makes me sad. I've prided myself. I've been elected now for over 6 years in this job. I've done about a town hall a month on average. And since the Trump election, we've moved that to a town hall a week. So this is actually the fifth town hall that I've held since the election, driven by just huge concern that people have about the unlawfulness, the attacks on the Constitution. And that was what the room came to hear. Unfortunately, there were a small group of people who decided to get up and disrupt on an issue that they disagreed on, and it's in their rights. I mean, no politician wins 100% of the votes, but ultimately the police felt that there was a risk to public safety and continuing because there was so much disagreement, with some of the protesters in the room, and I defer to the police in making sure that people stay safe. So we had to end, which is unfortunate.
Bien, vamos a hacer aquí una pausa. Estamos viendo estas imágenes, la verdad, muy picantes, muy fuertes. La verdad es que me da gusto que esté pasando este tipo de situaciones. Ojo, hay que separar estas cuestiones. Yo no aplaudo de que se alce la voz y se empiecen a faltarse al respeto, ni sobre todo que se insulten. Pero lo que sí me está gustando es de que la gente en ese país está alzando la voz sobre este tipo de situaciones que está haciendo, atrocidades que está cometiendo el gobierno de los Estados Unidos en conjunto con Israel y con la gente de Palestina, principalmente con la justificación que están abordando con el grupo terrorista de Hamas o Hamas. Sabemos perfectamente que por lo menos han estado perdiendo la vida 13,000 niños aproximadamente y posiblemente contando aún más, ya que Israel cortó de tajo el tema de la tregua y alto al fuego, donde murieron aproximadamente 200 personas, o sea, una masacre total, tirándole misiles a la gente. Y bueno, ahondando un poco más en esto, me gusta que el pueblo, el pueblo común, la gente común y corriente, esté alzando la voz contra este tipo de cosas, porque ellos no se ven representados totalmente con este tipo de situaciones. Ya lo hemos comentado muchas veces en este tema de que independientemente de sus orientaciones políticas, el que estén invadiendo otros lugares y donde mucha gente esté perdiendo la vida por cuestiones políticas es sumamente grave y sumamente triste. Así que bueno, sigamos con el video.
You've been critical of some of your Republican colleagues who either have canceled town halls or not scheduled them or kept press out of them. You've called some of them cowards. Do you intend to continue to hold town halls? What are your plans now?
We will absolutely continue to hold town halls. And I think there's a fundamental difference here that you've got, many of my colleagues who are either not inviting anybody who disagrees with them into the room, which, as you can tell, is not something that we do, or choosing not to have them at all. I think the challenge in this particular case is when you have people in the room who are at odds with other people in the room, and that in turn creating a public safety issue. We need to be very sensitive about how we do that. So, on a going forward basis, I think we're going to have to be much more deferential to what the local police feel is a safe way to do the town hall. But I think it's important for us to continue to make sure that we have these avenues for civil discourse and disagreement.
Bien, pues en las declaraciones que está teniendo el republicano Sean Casten, la verdad yo estoy de acuerdo con ello porque si bien está existiendo, está admitiendo él que ya hay diferencias entre los mismos republicanos, de que muchos colegas con ese cargo están opinando de manera muy diferente a cómo está actuando el gobierno en turno de los Estados Unidos. También está de acuerdo de que la gente tiene que expresarse. Es obvio que nadie quisiera que en un espacio de diálogo termine interviniendo la policía y que sea esto pues algo algo pues ya violento, que ya esté casi rozando a un ataque físico, una agresión. La verdad es de que siento que sí está teniendo muy buenas declaraciones por este lado. Y sobre todo porque admite que muchos de ellos ya no están pensando igual que el gobierno en turno.
Congressman, I want to ask you about Robert Kennedy Jr. and some comments that he made, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, on the bird flu. One of the things that he suggested was possibly, and he didn't use these words, but let it rip in a few places, let the chickens pass it on in certain confined areas to see which ones might be immune, so that they can then try to breed the ones that are immune and expand from there. I saw on your Twitter feed you had some criticism over that.
Look, the germ theory of disease is real. Vaccines save lives, and it is hard to process the fact that the senior health official in the United States is at odds with the scientific enlightenment. I mean, this is truly Stone Age thinking. We've seen what happens when you allow diseases to run rampant in societies. I mean, that was the plague, right? I think I mentioned on my Twitter that the Irish potato famine, if you do nothing when a blight is spreading that affects a major feed crop, people starve to death. RFK Jr. is going to kill Americans. There's no nicer way to put that, and it is the most polite way that I can put this is I am violently angry at the Republican senators who knew everything about what he thought and confirmed him to that position anyway.
And then one more question, admittedly based on what I saw in some of your Twitter feed this morning. You commented, Congressman Darrell Issa of California says he's going to nominate President Trump, for a Nobel Peace Prize. And you added him to a thread that you actually have that's tied.
¿Vieron la expresión de el congresista? Una cara de lamento, y sobre todo desde que están en el mismo partido político.
Titled Profiles in Sycophancy. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'd encourage you to check out the thread. It is ridiculous how many of my colleagues have chosen, rather than to defend the Constitution, rather than to defend the integrity of the Congress, are out there suggesting that they're going to nominate Donald Trump for a peace prize. Claudia Tenney wants to add his face to Mount Rushmore. There's multiple members who want to put his face on currency. I mean, this is a cult. These are not serious people. And we can have informed policy conversations about why that's stupid, or we can ridicule them. In either case, I think they should be treated with 100% of the respect that they've earned, and that's what we're trying to do here.
All right, Congressman Sean Casten, we do appreciate you waking up after the interesting night you had. Thanks for being with us.
CNN correspondent Arlette Saenz.
Pues bueno, señores, ¿qué opinan sobre este tipo de declaraciones? La verdad es de que son muy interesantes. Me llama mucho la atención de la expresión que pone pues el senador Shane Carson, perdón, y sobre todo porque saben que ellos mismos no están, bueno, no se la creen de que Donald Trump va a ser nominado al Premio Nobel de la Paz, y sobre todo sabiendo totalmente el tema que está pasando la gente de Palestina, y sobre todo que mucha gente, mucha gente lamentablemente ha perdido la vida, y lo que falta, es muy triste saber esto y sobre todo decirlo. Pero bueno, señores, la verdad es de que quería hacer un video algo más cortito, más conciso. ¿Qué es lo que opinan ustedes? Se pueden suscribir, saben que se pueden suscribir, suscríbanse, es totalmente gratis. Por favor, comenten qué opinión les merece esta situación y sobre todo, muy agradecido siempre con ustedes que estén aquí. Y bueno, les mando un saludo y nos vemos en la siguiente. Bye bye.